Thursday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. Browns training camp only a couple of weeks away. They'll get together down at the Greenbrier in West Virginia. Some good news, some good signs here. Deshaun Watson throwing the football around, working out ahead of training camp. Again, just good to see that the quarterback able to throw, still progressing through his rehabilitation. Is that from today. Deshaun Watson going through the drills, working on his footwork, on his release, and hopefully we'll be ready to go when they put the pads on and get things rolling out at training camp in a couple of weeks. But again, you would rather see your quarterback throwing the football than not throwing the football. Let's welcome in Quincy Carrier, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. And you know, we're in that lull between training camps, so you see Deshaun Watson throwing, that's a good sign, man.
Yeah, man. Look, if you are an athlete and you have a video of yourself working out, this is the time to drop it. We will never be more excited about your workout videos than right now, because we need something to remind us that football is on the horizon. We will watch you play flag football right now, dog. We desperate. Anything. Hey, Nick Chubb, you got a video of you doing a squat? Drop it now. Like, I'm telling you, David Njoku, this is your time. You upload something. This is where you shine.
You mentioned flag football. Deshaun's high school flag football 7-on-7 is coming up in a couple of weeks as well. So we'll plug that for Deshaun as well. Second year that he's done it with local high school teams here in Cleveland. All right, this is one reason to be optimistic about every NFL team this season. This from Total Pro Sports. For the Browns, they say, finally, QB stability, ? If Deshaun Watson can be 75% as good as the guy we saw in Houston, Browns would be the Chiefs' main competitors in the AFC. If he can stay healthy and provide above-average quarterback play, the Browns will be Super Bowl contenders for the first time since the Bernie Kosar days. I don't often agree with national things regarding Deshaun Watson. I agree with that one.
Hey, I mean, that's what we traded for Deshaun Watson to be, is the stability at quarterback that we have not seen since Deshaun Watson. I mean, not Deshaun Watson, since Bernie Kosar. So yeah, that's the hope. We saw what this defense was able to accomplish, and what they hope to be able to still accomplish next year. And if we get that stability at quarterback play, it's the one thing we've been waiting on to finish this puzzle for the Cleveland Browns for 20 years.
Now, I know you've addressed this on your show. When you look at the AFC North, it's obviously the best division in football. I mean, you could argue that, but you'd be wrong. Can the Browns win it? And what are the keys if they can?
Yeah, so with the AFC North, I think it's interesting because all of the teams not named the Cleveland Browns seem to be quietly reloading, right? You look at Baltimore, they're going to start 3 young players on their offensive line. Now, you can say Baltimore drafts well, and that justifies it, but they're starting what is a 7th-round pick, a 4th-round pick in Ben Cleveland, Andrew Voorhees. That's going to be their starting guards, and a 2nd-round pick in Roger Rosengarten. This isn't like with Pittsburgh, where they're going to start like 2 first-rounders and a 2nd-rounder on the offensive line. So quietly, they're trying to get not just younger, but cheaper on the offensive line. And when you're trying to get younger and cheaper, you're not necessarily trying to win right now. So that's the situation Baltimore's in. Pittsburgh is in an interesting situation that they've been in since Big Ben has come back from that elbow surgery. They are a good team. They are a solid team. They are not a team that's going to be a threat for any serious contender in the playoffs. They're a 2nd-round bounce at max. And then you have Cincinnati, who, again, another team that's not really swinging for the fences this year. Maybe in a couple of years, they'll be swinging for the fences, but they're not swinging for the fences. Only team I see that's trying to keep everybody together and go for it truly this year is the Cleveland Browns. Now, that doesn't guarantee success, but that is their pathway because they're the only team really trying to put everything in to be a Super Bowl contender. And we know the years after you do that, you have to spend some time reloading. So the Browns need to take advantage of this opportunity.
Keys. Obviously, Watson playing well is a key. Other than that, what do the Browns need in order to be what we think they can be as Super Bowl contenders?
Yeah, we know with Watson, we need him to play well, but we also need Nick Chubb in that run game to show up, right? When you talk about being a Super Bowl contender, it's how likely are you to win 4 games or 3 games in a row against some of the best competition that the NFL has to offer. And when you're talking about ways to do that, you need a lot of different ways to win games. So you need to be able to win a game running the ball. With that, you need Nick Chubb, right? You need the defense to be able to show up. You need Myles Garrett to continue to play at a high level. You need Denzel Ward to stay healthy for most of the year, which he did a good job of last year. You also need Grant Delpit to stay healthy. Health is probably the second key. I feel like that's an obvious thing, but we saw what happened last year. And then consistency from your star players. JOK, is he going to take that leap into being a Pro Bowl player? The more ways you have to win a game, the more versatile you could be in how you can win, the better a chance you have of being a contender. Look at Kansas City. That defense afforded them so many different ways to win, and that's why they were able to win a championship. If you look at any championship team, that's what separates them from the other contenders. How many ways they have to win, how versatile can they be, and can they win a game with the changing circumstances in the playoffs? Are they going to be the team most prepared to win whatever that's going to be that week?
So let's talk a little bit about Jed Wills. It seems like there's a guy that the fan base just seems to have a little bit of venom built up about. Why do you think that is with Jed Wills?
Jed is interesting because Jed was a top 10 pick. He's the only top 10 pick of the Andrew Berry era. Now, maybe if we had more top 10 picks, we would focus less on Jed, but Jed's the one guy there. Also, Jed is the guy that when you drafted Greg Newsome in the first round, nobody really went behind Greg Newsome that made you go, oh, man, wish we would have got that guy. But Tristan Wirfs went behind Jed. A lot of people wanted Tristan Wirfs instead of Jed Wills. So not only is Jed not the guy that some people wanted, the guy that they wanted is looking like a Hall of Famer. And I think that plays into the perception of him. It's similar to what happened with Jerry Jeudy in Denver. Also with Jed, Jed has this flaw in his game where he's not the greatest improviser in the world. And that tends to show up as somebody who quits on plays. I don't think that's what that is. I don't think he quits on plays. I just think he gets stuck sometimes when he has to improvise and he can't make a decision. So I think all of those things combine to have people kind of be frustrated with Jed Wills. And it's just kind of a tough situation for him to be in. But hopefully with this year, he can have a good enough year to where he can overcome all that.
I found this one interesting. This is from Sports Illustrated. Breakout candidates for every NFL team entering training camp. It's from Sports Illustrated. They say for the Browns, Jerome Ford. After a year of learning quickly on the job, 24-year-old will likely start the year as the Browns' primary running back. When Chubb does return, Ford can be an asset on third downs and as a kick returner. Not only do I expect him more consistently to pick up positive yardage, but he will likely impact games in a variety of ways. I don't necessarily argue with it. I'm hoping that a lot of the challenges with the negative plays were because you were playing with your fourth and fifth tackles a lot for Jerome Ford.
Some of it is that with Jerome Ford. Some of it is just how he plays and what his size is. He's not the biggest back in the world. He's somebody who does like to string things out. I think Jerome Ford is somebody who's best suited to be a change of pace running back or a third down back. I don't think his future is in starting, and I think that's why the Browns got D'Onta Foreman to start and hold that role down in case Nick Chubb can't get back for week one, or, to kind of do what Kareem Hunt used to do for this offense. I think Jerome Ford's role is going to be more of a secondary or tertiary role where he's going to be asked to kind of just do some of the things that he does well. And I think when he's put in position to do those things well, he will put up good numbers because he's a good player. He's just a player that you have to use in a very specific way.
Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns Coverage, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Can you believe this new $1,000 tax-free scratch-off? 18,000 $1,000 winners? Another winner? Good thing I brought my check writing pens. You know what else is winning? My carpal tunnel syndrome. Wouldn't it be great for these guys if they could cash their tickets in online?
They can with the Ohio Lottery app.
What? That's great! Wait, what's an app?
Attention shoppers, the Ohio Lottery's $1,000 tax-free $20 scratch-off is your best chance ever to win $1,000. And yes, you can cash it in online.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, this is Carl from Rochester. I want to comment on the Myles Garrett thing. I have to disagree. If you don't double team him, he'll kill you. Well, the last 7 games he was non-existent, and the playoff game he went up against a guy who hurt his knee during the game and still did nothing. So I have to tend to kind of disagree with that. So I don't know. That's my opinion. Take care, guys. See you.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Quincy, the argument was that, Myles Garrett, second half of the year didn't do much. We showed he was voted the top edge rusher by executives, and basically NFL defensive coordinator said, if you don't double team him, he will blank kill you.
I love how our guy from Rochester here said.
Rochester is I will tell you, Rochester is a rough place for Myles Garrett and Kevin Stefanski this week on this show.
Well, yeah, I love how you refer to Larry Tuttle as a guy with a hurt knee. Yeah. It was just some dude out there that did that to Myles, right? Had a good game. It wasn't one of the best left tackles in all of football. It was a dude with a hurt knee. That is the most hilariously transparent way to describe a player, to kind of push forward your point, that I have ever seen. And you know what? At this point, I just got to give you the Skip Bayless Award, Jim in Rochester. You are a contender, a nominee for the Skip Bayless Award today, because that is some top-tier, world-class, professional level hating.
All right. So let me ask you, and again, I know you've addressed this on your show. Do you think it's possible? Browns defense was really good last year. Is it possible for them to get better? And how can they get better?
Statistically, I don't think there's going to be many defenses that ever improve on some of the numbers that they provided last year, right? And they did get a little bit of a break when it came to, they played Clayton Tune and these other things that kind of helped them accomplish those numbers. So I don't think statistically they're ever going to supersede some of the more impressive numbers from last year. Like I'm short at sacks or something that they can get more of. But, the numbers where they gave up, like 10 points at home a game, that's probably not going to happen. But where the Browns defense can get better is at stopping the run on a play-to-play basis. They were good every once in a while stopping the run, but they weren't consistent stopping the run. And the second area where the Browns defense can get better is big plays. They gave up a lot of big plays last year, right? Like a lot of their touchdowns aren't on these like big long drives where teams have to go 17 plays on them. They're on these like short 4 or 5 play drives where they gave up a big chunk play to give up a touchdown. That's where they have to figure it out, and that's going to be between the secondary, the communication, and man coverage. And it's going to also rely on other guys not named Myles Garrett getting pressure and getting home to not have those opportunities linger for those big plays. So that's the main area, big plays and stopping the run, where the Browns are going to have to improve to be maybe not a better statistical defense than they were last year, but maybe a more consistent and more functionally good unit than they were last year.
What'd you think of Dalvin Tomlinson last year, and how do you look at him moving ahead this year?
Yeah, I was glad that I did the exercise on the 25 players on the Cleveland Browns coming up, because this is stuff you want to find, right? And with Dalvin Tomlinson, what I found was a player who kind of underwhelmed, right? In every other statistical category. Now, there's an argument you can make there that he's playing with players who are much better around him, so the opportunities to make plays aren't going to be there. I don't buy that argument because he wasn't on a deficient defense last year with Minnesota, at least on the defensive line. You still had Zadarius Smith. You had all pros at both tackle edge positions. And then you also had 2 players at tackle that were pretty damn good there in Minnesota. So I don't think it was he played on a more talented defensive line last year. So that's why his numbers halved when it comes to run stops, when it comes to pass rush win rate, and when it comes to just tackles overall. I think he just did not play well and adjust to how Jim Schwartz used him, which is as a pass rusher. Long story short with Dalvin, he's going to be used as a pass rusher in this defense. Jim Schwartz does not have anything that resembles a run stuffer in this defense. This is not part of the Jim Schwartz defense when you're in a wide 9. But what he is a multi-tool, and every once in a while, Jim Schwartz going to want to crank out the run stuffer and have him out there for 10% of the time. And he has to do a better job in run coverage next year. I thought he was fine enough as a pass rusher, but run coverage, run defense, he has to be better. He has to make more plays. And we want to see Dalvin Tomlinson, get those moments, especially in run D, because he just wasn't that guy last year. And that's kind of what I dug up by doing this exercise. So I'm glad I did it.
Who's the Browns' secret weapon defensively, do you think? Or who can be the Browns' secret weapon defensively?
I'm doing a rewatch for the Cleveland Browns right now, and every week I'm like, man, Obo Okoronkwo, he just does stuff, right? Like small. Him and Shelby Harris, which I'm glad that they're both coming back. They both do these little things well, but I think Obo Okoronkwo is just kind of the perfect pairing to have when you have as pass rush heavy of a defensive line that the Cleveland Browns had. You have Myles Garrett, you have Zadarius Smith, who I'm sure will have a better year than he had last year. And sometimes pressure leaks, and you need somebody to fill the leaks, somebody to mop up all that traffic that goes on in the pocket. And I think Obo Okoronkwo is a great example of somebody who can be a perfect mop for this Cleveland Browns defensive line, because he's a great athlete. He has good instincts, and his motor is just incredible. And that leads to him making a lot of plays, because if you have a high motor on this Browns defense, there's enough playmakers here to where there's going to be plays being made.
Yeah, and Okoronkwo, and don't forget Alex Wright. They got a number of guys, so that is absolutely a good thing. Greg Newsome, overrated, or are fans just a little too tough on him, do you think?
I think it's a little bit of in between here. What I found with Greg Newsome is a corner who does well whenever he's running vertically, right? And I think whenever you see Greg in the slot defending the seam, he's going to do a great job there. Where Greg gets in trouble is in breaking routes or out breaking routes. Anywhere where he has to break left or right and be explosive in his movement, because what Greg is a corner who can run fast, but he's not explosive. He does not have great acceleration for his position. So when you watch like the Denver game, for example, you see a lot of Greg Newsome getting beat on these in-breaking routes, right? These posts, these backside digs, these front sides, all of that stuff where Greg Newsome kind of gets beat on man coverage. And that's where you have to just balance out what he can do well. I think he's a great corner to have, but you also have to manage him and use him a little bit more than like with Martin Emerson, where you could just kind of throw Martin Emerson wherever. So Greg, he's the third best corner on this team for sure. Like, it's not debatable. He is. It's not even close. But he's a really good third best corner. Like, so it's just one of those situations where he's going to get compared to guys who are better than him. And while it's fair, it's just not fortunate when it comes to the perception of him.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Kira from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Good morning, guys. This is Jim from Rochester. I heard a guy call yesterday talking about scripted plays, and he actually had the audacity to mention Bill Walsh in the same vein as Kevin Stefanski and about double-teaming Mr. Garrett. I understand he does, okay? So that's your head coach that's supposed to figure out why they're not putting any pressure on them. There is no fire on this team. Just look at the head coach, Mr. Stefanski. It almost looked like we didn't even care about the playoff game because by losing it, they were able to let Flacco go with no controversy. And Barry and Kevin, they like our quarterback room. Really? Goodbye, gents.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. You do mention Bill Walsh. He was 2-14 his first year and 6-10 his second before he won the Super Bowl in his third year. I'm guessing you probably would have fired him based on the way you reacted to the first couple of years of Stefanski. Scripted plays, they are important. And it wasn't in comparison to Bill Walsh. It was Bill Walsh was really good at scripting plays. Kevin Stefanski is good at scripting plays. It matters. I will agree with you. They need to get better at in-game adjustments. Quincy?
Did he just say what I think he said in the second part of that thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so he talks about Kevin Stefanski being in the same vein as Bill Walsh or whatever.
It's Jim Schwartz's job to kind of work about the defense.
Did he just say that the Browns purposely lost that playoff game so they could get rid of Joe Flacco?
No, there was no fire. It was his thing. And then, he wants him to bring back.
There was no fire? There was fire in that game till Joe Flacco threw 2 pick sixes.
Consecutive plays.
Consecutive plays. And then got turnover on downs on the drive after that.
Yeah.
Huh? Oh, wow. Hey, I you know what? There's competition for the Skip Bayless Award. This might be the favorite.
I told you.
That's crazy.
Both of them are from Rochester. Rochester is rough on Myles Garrett and Kevin Stefanski. All right.
It's got to be where the player ball is. Like the haters ball, like it's got to be it.
So this is from CBSSports.com, 2024 NFL head coach rankings. Andy Reid 1, Sean McVay 2, Kyle Shanahan 3, Jim Harbaugh 4, Matt LaFleur 5, Mike Tomlin 6, Jim Harbaugh of the Chargers 7, Campbell 8, McDermott 9, and Kevin Stefanski 10. Stefanski has proven adaptable as leader on offense, taking pressure off Baker Mayfield back in 2020, then coaxing a playoff bid out of an aging Joe Flacco in 2023. If Watson is mercurial, Stefanski is the club's steadying hand. Jim in Rochester, block your ears. I think 10 it's probably fair. I would, Dan Campbell, it was a year and a half. Matt LaFleur, let's see how he does second year without Aaron Rodgers. Jim Harbaugh, he was great for a couple of years with the 49ers, and then 49ers players wanted him gone.
We forget Jim Harbaugh finished like his 49ers run going like 2-14 or something like that. Like we only remember the good times with Jim Harbaugh, which tends because we also forgot the bad times at Michigan. I just find the whole Jim Harbaugh thing fascinating. Maybe he's a great head coach and there's something I'm missing with him, but I don't know, man. It felt like Ohio State needed to get significantly worse for Michigan to do the things that they have done the last couple of years. And also, he won that national championship, which should not be taken away from him. It's a huge credit to him. But let's also not act like the NCAA was at its highest of strength last year when programs like Ohio State didn't make the playoffs, like Georgia didn't make the playoffs, and Alabama was probably at its lowest point in its program's history within the last 10 years since Saban was there. So, it's interesting seeing all the hype go about Jim Harbaugh. I feel like people forgot that even 10 years ago, and this was 10 years ago, in 2014, he wasn't just the guy that went to the Super Bowl the one time in 2012 or 2013. there were other parts of that Jim Harbaugh thing that kind of led to him getting back to Michigan, and I wonder when we going to remember that.
All right. Let me ask you this. What do you think about Juan Thornhill? That's a guy that, I mean, he was never truly healthy a season ago. And I can't, calf injury, trying to play safety, especially free safety, that sounds like a miserable existence for a profession at that point.
I think Juan Thornhill was actually pretty good last year, to be honest with you. He was asked to be a run stuffer. Well, not a run stuffer, right? You're not a run stuffer at free safety. But he was asked to be kind of more important in the run game, and I thought he did a good job with that. The issue with Juan Thornhill and how people are going to perceive him is any highlight from Juan Thornhill is going to be either after a big play or like he makes like a giant pick six or something. But that's going to be few and far between. It's usually going to be, oh, he made a tackle 15 yards downfield that did stop a touchdown, but you can't appreciate that because you're mad about the 15 yards, rightfully so. And that's kind of the position that Juan Thornhill is in. I thought he played well, especially a lot better than people give him credit for. Some room for improvement in coverage, but I think you can say that across the board on anybody who had to play a ton of zone coverage in this Browns defense. That's where they look like a first-year defense, was in zone coverage. But yeah, I thought Juan was much better than people give him credit for, especially in the run game where he was crucial for this team.
All right. What do you think about Mo Hurst? That's a guy that, some people say might be on the roster bubble. What are your thoughts just about Hurst?
I think Mo Hurst is a player that has potential to be a top-tier role player for the Cleveland Browns, right? He's not going to start, but what he is going to be a specialty pass rusher at that defensive tackle position, and that's a role that the Browns really need to be filled on this defensive line. He's not going to be the greatest run stuffer in the world. Like every once in a while, he will make a play in the run game, but he's not a run stuffer. He's a downhill pass rush 3-tech, and I think he has plus level ability. You look at his career, all the things derailed him is injury. If he can stay healthy, which is a giant if with him, he can be a high level role player.
Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns Coverage, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, 5 key storylines for the Browns entering training camp. Sports4CLE will have that when we return. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled, Unfiltered Browns Coverage. Just from NFL.com, 5 key storylines for the Browns entering training camp. Number 1, will Ken Dorsey prove to be the right fit for Cleveland? So it's going to be interesting, Quincy. I'm very curious to see how this offense looks with Ken Dorsey. And I think it's going to look different.
Yeah, I think it's going to feel different. I don't know how much different structurally it's going to be, like when it comes to their concepts and when they're running what or how much they run past, like those kind of things I'm going to have to wait and see on. But I think it's going to feel different. I think the timing of stuff is going to feel different. I think the way that routes look or completions look is going to feel a little bit different. And that's all exactly what the Browns want, because they want to build something that's a little bit more custom to what Deshaun Watson's strengths are.
So number 2 on the 5 key storylines, can the Browns' offensive line sustain success without Bill Callahan? So Andy Dickerson takes over for Callahan, has some history in that Sean McVay offense as well.
Yeah, Yeah, I think Andy Dickinson's a good offensive line coach, and even more importantly, I think that the Browns' offensive line has a lot of veterans on the roster. These aren't young guys who are going to lose their way because their coach went away. These guys who have been able to suck in 4 years of coaching from Bill Callahan, and they will carry that on to whatever they do next year. Like sometimes we talk about coaches as if like the players around them don't retain any knowledge when they leave, and Joe Bitonio is going to be in that room. He has absorbed a lot of knowledge from what Bill Callahan has been able to do, and he'll be a voice in that room that helps them transition and make sure that younger guys who maybe haven't had those 4 years, like a DeJuan Jones, get some of that knowledge that Bill Callahan was doing. I think he was there long enough to where his impact has already been felt and will continue to be felt, and it will aid Andy Dickinson and whatever the Browns want to do next. So I don't see Bill Callahan leaving as like an immediate downgrade of the Browns' offensive line because of those factors.
Yeah, they're a veteran group without question. Number 3, 5 key storylines for the Browns entering training camp. Is Deshaun Watson finally going to be the star Cleveland thought it was, acquiring in 2022?
I think there's a chance that he plays at a high level this year. We really got to see with Deshaun. We don't have enough games to feel great either way, right? We want to have a better sample of games, and I think that's what I'm looking forward to. One way or the other, however this season ends, we're going to have a not a definitive, but a more definitive answer on what the situation is with Deshaun Watson going forward and what our expectations should be of him, and if that's going to be at what we expected, above what we expected, or below what we expected. So, it's tough to tell right now. I think there's a lot that can give you hope that he's going to be what you traded for him to be, but there's also a lot that would make you skeptical of that reality. It's just on the table. Both options are on the table for Deshaun. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I would say, the injury, you can't control that. Suspension is a different thing. It's football. Players get hurt. That shouldn't be anything that counts against Deshaun Watson, without question. All right, number 4, Amari Cooper is 30 years old, entering final season of contract. Not surprising he's trying to get paid this year. I would think they find a way to get him into camp pretty quickly. I'd be surprised if they don't. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Yeah, I think, look, Amari Cooper knows that it's at his best interest to be as prepared as possible for this season, because if he wants to be paid and if he's convinced the Browns aren't going to be the team that does it, then he wants to put together the best body of work that he can this year so somebody else does drop the bag on him. So at the end of the day, whether this is Amari Cooper's last year with the Cleveland Browns or he gets extended for more years, and we have to remember when the Browns made this trade, everybody thought that they would only keep him for 2 years. So now we're in like the 3rd year of Amari Cooper. So we're already in plus territory with him. So yeah, for Amari Cooper, it makes sense for him to want to play at a high level this year, regardless of how he feels about his contract situation, because that's how he'll get out of it. And for the Browns, it benefits them to have Amari Cooper play, so they'll figure something out.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what's behind him, and there's potential, but if you consider yourself a playoff team that can go deep in the playoffs and make a potential, you don't have the horses behind without Amari Cooper. Let's put it that way. You need Amari Cooper to get what you think is your ultimate goal.
Yeah, you need Amari Cooper. You need Jerry Jeudy. You need David Njoku. You need all these guys. They all need to step up, because it's not the most lethal high-power attack in football right now when it comes to those weapons. It's not a bad one, but you need some guys to step up. You need David Njoku to be somewhere close to a 1,000-yard receiver. Same thing with Jerry Jeudy. And, even somebody like Elijah Moore, who I'm sure we're going to talk about later.
All right, Jim Schwartz. Will he be tested by the toughest schedule in the NFL? And can Browns fans trust the defensive renaissance that they saw a season ago?
I just worry about when we put so much emphasis into strength of schedule, because we don't know. Like, and you can't make predictions based off of strength of schedule because we don't know. Should this schedule be a little bit more difficult than it was last year? Yes. But last year's schedule was supposed to be difficult. Ended up, now we're at the end of it. Oh, it wasn't that difficult. They got lucky. Not really true when you look at that last stretch of the season, particularly like the road trip that they had to go on the West Coast. Like, people forget we played both Denver and LA when they were in the middle of giant win streaks on the road. But the schedule's going to be the schedule. All you can really focus on with the Browns defense is being able to play at a top 10 level. And I think that that's going to be the case for them. They're a top 10 defense, whether they're number 1, number 4, number 5, number 6, they're going to be in that top 10 ranking. So I don't see strength of schedule changing that.
Yeah, and you know, the flip side of it is they need to. The one thing I would say, would like to see the defense turn the ball over more, and the offense not turn the ball over as much. Those two things, I think, go a long way.
Yeah, you turned the ball over less. Also, this team took a while to get turnovers going last year. They didn't get turnovers until the second half of the season. Also, I think there's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to the sack production of this Browns defensive line. Zadarius Smith underperformed last year from a sack total number. So I think you can get more from guys like Zadarius. I think you can get even more from guys like Miles. I think there's more to get there from this Browns defense going into 2024.
Quincy Carrier, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
Thank you.
Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out. Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Always really insightful and good Browns coverage. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. John Macri from Pro Football Focus straight ahead. Sports4CLE. He'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Can you believe this new $1,000 tax-free scratch-off? $18,000, $1,000 winners? Another winner? Good thing I brought my check-writing pens. You know what else is winning? My carpal tunnel syndrome. Wouldn't it be great for these guys if they could cash their tickets in online?
They can, with the Ohio Lottery app.
What? That's great! Wait, what's an app?
Attention shoppers, the Ohio Lottery's $1,000 tax-free $20 scratch-off is your best chance ever to win $1,000. And yes, you can cash it in online.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. So these are the highest PFF pass rush win rates among edge rushers the last 2 seasons. Steve Palazzolo from PFF tweets it out. Myles Garrett, far and away the highest win rate, 24.9, so almost 25%. Micah Parsons, 21.6. Nick Bosa, 21. Trey Hendrickson of the Bengals, 19.1. And Zadarius Smith, who last year was with the Browns, 18.7%. Let's welcome in John Macri from Pro Football Focus, co-host of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. John, can you explain the importance of pass rush win rate? I think a lot of times fans get caught up in sacks, and they're important, without question. But when you at PFF, when you look at a pass rush win rate, what does it say to you? Why is that important?
Part of what makes a player so great is what they're doing on every single play, right? Like pass rush win rate, pass rush grade, pressure rate, all those stats that look at what a defensive lineman is doing on a play-to-play basis basically carries more weight to like an NFL team than, the less than 20 plays where a player got a sack, which, like you said, very important to get those sacks. But disrupting the quarterback and causing havoc and breaking up the offense a little bit by winning at the offensive line right off the snap is just as important, right? And those guys like Myles Garrett, like Zadarius Smith, that are doing that on a regular basis at a higher rate than everybody else, that's significantly more valuable, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look at it as they are making it difficult for the opposing quarterback to get enough time to complete the play that they want to complete.
Exactly. If they're getting pressure on that play, they're creating an incompletion or a turnover, potentially causing the quarterback to make mistakes. And doing that on rundowns too, is getting in the backfield before the running back can hit their intended hole. Things like that, like winning at the line of scrimmage, is so important. And somebody like Myles Garrett, who does it higher than anybody else. I mean, his 27.3% win rate last year was the highest mark ever in our PFF era. So since 2006 for an edge defender, I mean, it's just a huge part of why he's the reigning defensive player of the year, is because he's doing so much more than just sacks.
When you look at this Browns defense, the line stands out. What do you think about the other, the linebacking core, the secondary? When you look at it in totality, how good can this defense be? Should this defense be, maybe?
I think they should be very good again, right? Like last year, I mean, you look at their defense in a lot of the major categories that mattered. They were the best in the league in yards allowed per play, in positive EPA percentage against, first in successful plays allowed, first in scoring drives allowed, tied for third in interceptions, tied for seventh in sacks. I mean, considering like defense, it tends to be like a pretty unstable thing year to year, but they have the personnel to continue being one of the best units in the league. I mean, you add in, a Jordan Hicks who could be a steady linebacker to the middle of the defense. I think, I like the pass rush upside of a rookie that they brought in Michael Hall Jr. In the interior. I think Zadarius Smith is primed for some positive sack regression as well, right? And then you get Grant Delpit back, who they didn't have in the playoffs. Like, there's definitely the personnel in place, along with what Jim Schwartz was able to do with them last year, turning them into one of the more man-heavy defenses in the league. Like, I would be ranking them easily among the top 5 again this season.
This is from Athlon Sports. They're asking the question: are the Browns Super Bowl contenders or Super Bowl pretenders this year? Their rationale: if we get MVP candidate Watson, the Browns would be in serious contenders not only to go to the Super Bowl, but to win it. If we get below average, indecisive, slow, and lethargic Watson we've seen in the 12 games since he arrived in Cleveland, they are likely a one-and-done team. We believe this team can be a true contender this season, but we'll say pretender for now. We will circle back once we see more from Watson in training camp and in the preseason. John, I get why people question Watson. The one thing I would say, he has been hurt. That you can't control. 2 of Joe Burrow's 4 seasons have ended in injury. You had Lamar Jackson make it through an entire season last year, but was out last 4 games. The 2 seasons before that, missed a playoff game. It's a dangerous position. It's one you're going to get beat up in. I keep asking everybody this. Nobody's been able to give me an answer. I can't come up with a guy who has been a 3-time Pro Bowler early in his career, who has, without suffering a catastrophic injury, who has fell off the face of the earth and just couldn't play anymore. And that's why I tend to think Deshaun Watson's going to rebound, because that's kind of who he was, or who he is, I should say.
Right. And I think that's part of it, right? Like, I think, coming back to that quote in the article there. Like I definitely disagree that I don't think he has to be MVP candidate Deshaun Watson, right? Like, of course, so much rides on the quarterback position. I just think he has to be better than what he's been. And like you said, there's absolutely room for him to rebound and become back into that guy. Like if he's top 12, top 15, look at what we can get from guys in that range from last year. CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, Jared Goff, who, all won playoff games last year and with arguably not as good as defenses as what the Browns had. So MVP candidate Watson, lofty expectations. It would be amazing, of course, but I don't think he even needs to necessarily reach those exact heights again, considering, the rest of the roster. And I'm with you. I mean, there's the potential is there. The talent is there. We already know that. We've seen it before. So it's just a matter of staying healthy and having a full season to kind of put it all together. And there's definitely the possibility of that for sure.
All right, before I let you go, this is Bill Barnwell of ESPN.com ranking NFL teams based on their wide receivers, tight ends, and running back talent for 2024. 49ers 1, Eagles 2, Dolphins 3. Hard to argue with those. Middle of this I get a little iffy about. They have the Buccaneers 13, the Jaguars 16, the Packers 17, the Cowboys 18, the Titans 19, and the Browns 20th. They were 12th last year. Their rationale, there's major upside here if everybody's healthy, lives up to expectations, but it would be a surprise if any of the top playmakers on this roster played a full 17 games. I look at the Packers. They have a lot of really talented young guys. My question with them, can they do it again? I look at the Titans, and I love Tajay Spears, DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not. Can he do it again? I think 20 is a little low. I'm probably a little bit of a Browns homer because I follow them closer, but I still think if you're telling me their wide receivers, running backs, and David Njoku are not in the top half, I'm kind of scratching my head there.
Yeah, 20 feels low for me as well. Like even if we just go off of like our unit rankings or top player rankings for the positions, like yes, wide receiver, we have them as 18th, so still higher than 20, but then running back unit we have as 8th, and obviously they'd be top 5 if we knew for sure Nick Chubb was going to be healthy. David Njoku is a top 10 tight end in the league, I would say. So yeah, 20 definitely feels low. I think there's potential in that wide receiver core to be better than how they're perceived right now, because again, you bring in a first round talent like Jerry Jeudy to get a fresh start in that offense. We don't know exactly how he's going to fit, but he can mesh. He could end up meshing very well with Deshaun Watson and company over there, plus Elijah Moore. And then obviously the lead one, it being Amari Cooper, who is proven to be one of the best wide receivers in the league for several years now. So 20's low. I would definitely be putting them inside the top 15, I would think, again, especially if Nick Chubb is healthy. It just makes such a huge difference for that backfield. But I mean, even that considered, I love David Njoku. I think there's more potential there than 20 for sure.
John Macri, appreciate the time and the insight. As always, great stuff. Thanks very much, John.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
John Macri, make sure you check him out. He is from Pro Football Focus, co-host of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. We're in a step aside, take a quick time out. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Can you believe this new $1,000 tax-free scratch-off? $18,000, $1,000 winners? Another winner? Good thing I brought my check writing pens. You know what else is winning? My carpal tunnel syndrome. Wouldn't it be great for these guys if they could cash their tickets in online?
They can, with the Ohio Lottery app.
What? That's great! Wait, what's an app?
Attention shoppers, the Ohio Lottery's $1,000 tax-free $20 scratch-off is your best chance ever to win $1,000. And yes, you can cash it in online.
We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Cavaliers out in Vegas, where they will start Summer League play tomorrow. Let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Sam, we'll get to Summer League in just a minute. Everybody's kind of looking to see, waiting to hear. When do you think this Evan Mobley contract extension gets done? Is it just a matter of time? Is there something holding it up? And what do you expect it to look like?
Yeah, I think it really is just a matter of time. I would suspect that it would probably be done by, say, August anyway. There are always little things here and there that can hold things up. Maybe if there's discussion of an option toward the end of the contract, something like that could be maybe holding it up a little bit. But I think it's really just a formality, much like we've seen these other rookie scale deals. The most recent one, Cade Cunningham with the Detroit Pistons. So to me, I have faith for the Cavs and Evan Mobley that it'll get done. It's just, a few little things here and there that have to be worked out. And, Cavs fans had to wait for the Donovan Mitchell contract extension for some reason. Now, they got to wait around on Mobley, but I would suspect it's nothing to be concerned with. The sides have talked, and they'll get it hammered out here, I'd imagine, pretty soon.
What does it look like dollar-wise? Do you expect it to be for the max, the big money?
Oh yeah, I'm sure that the Cavs are going to, make it the max offer. Evan Mobley will gladly accept. Again, if there's any kind of holdup at the moment, it may have to do with, the idea that there might be an option on there, or Evan Mobley wants an option. I don't think right now the Cavs would want to give him one. I don't know that that's the holdup, but I suspect that could be something that the sides are talking through, which is why, and I wouldn't even really say it's a holdup. It's just these other guys like Cade Cunningham who got that deal, and Scotty Barnes with the Raptors who got that deal. They just did it so quickly that it seems like there may be a quote-unquote holdup. Really, the Cavs and Evan Mobley are on the normal time frame right now.
So I know you wrote an article about Isaac Okoro's restricted free agency, and that's one that could be protracted. The Cavs are going to be up against that second apron coming, and you don't want to get into that because that one it's a hard cap. You can't do anything with your draft picks. You can't do anything with your contracts to it's very restrictive now.
Yeah, let's start with a second apron. It used to be you could overspend. This is all part of the new collective bargaining agreement that just went into effect, which is why we saw, not to dive too deeply into it, but which is why we saw kind of a slower start to NBA free agency, June 29th through July 1st. Things were kind of dragging along, and it's because of this new second tax apron penalty. It used to be the penalty was you just had to pay more tax. Well, now you not only have to pay more tax, but it impacts everything else you want to do roster-wise. It really limits, if you go over that second tax apron, it's going to impact everything else you do in terms of trying to build a roster. So now, before the owners, NBA owners would be like, yeah, whatever, I can pay the tax, no big deal. I've got an endless stream of money. But now general managers are viewing this like, we don't want to get into that second tax because forget the money. We're just not going to be able to build our teams. Or say one of our best players gets hurt, we're not going to be able to make a trade. So the Cavs want to avoid that just like everybody else. And like you said, Dave, if they, depending on the type of deal that you sign Isaac Okoro to as a restricted free agent, you could put yourself right up against that tax apron, and then you'd really be limited. So it's kind of with Isaac Okoro a wait-and-see scenario. What are other teams going to offer him? Is he getting other offers? And if so, is it something the Cavs are going to match, or is it going to be something where they would want to get involved in a sign and trade? So Isaac Okoro, unlike Evan Mobley, a lot less certainty around what's going to happen next.
All right. So we heard from Kenny Atkinson. I know you were at the press conference where he was introduced to the media. He seemed pretty confident that he has an idea of how he would make this core four work together. He wants to keep it together, at least if he doesn't, you don't want to play poker against him because he sure came out bluffing like he wants them together. Best guess.
Yeah.
If he keeps them together, What's that offense look like? How do you change it to make that work?
Yeah, I mean, and you're right. That was the sell, is that we want to keep Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell together, in the sense that Kenny Atkinson said, I view it as if I have two all-star guards, and obviously the same thing with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen up front, want to make that work, especially with Mobley and Allen. Really, you got to figure that out offensively. Defensively, they're already elite. For years we heard how the Cavs need more rim protectors. Well, now they have two of the best in the NBA in the same front court. That's hard to find. Not many teams can make that claim defensively. So, what Kenny Atkinson's job is, as you just said, to try to figure out how to get this all to connect offensively. Now, there are times that it would flow, but, here's the thing that I thought about Kenny Atkinson making this work is we asked him about his time coaching the Brooklyn Nets, and he said, you know what, I've evolved so much as a coach since then, having been involved as an assistant with Steve Kerr and the Warriors and their offensive system and the way they make things work. It's predicated on ball movement, cutting, screening, all the old school stuff that we've seen the Warriors use throughout the years. Try to implement that now with Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley. And that's why Kenny Atkinson got the job. During these interviews, the Cavs were saying, how are you going to make this core four work together and really flourish, and especially get Evan Mobley to that next level?
The other thing that struck me in listening to him, and it's something that I've said, his point was, Allen and Mobley are both fast and they're both mobile. You should be able to figure out a way to make that work without having one or the other hang out at the three-point line.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about Evan Mobley's first 3 months in the NBA as a rookie, he just looked so comfortable with the ball. Really, that's when he was at his best as a passer. And it wasn't about him going out to the three-point line. He was playing in the 10 to 15-foot range, which he can make those shots now. But it was really how he was kind of delivering the ball and really finding the open man. And that's kind of since those first 3 or 4 months. Then he got injured. And when he came back, he wasn't really the same, kind of hit that rookie wall. And his numbers have increased every season slightly. But the Cavs believe that Evan Mobley is potentially an all-star. How do we get him to that all-star level? And it doesn't mean going out and hitting threes and spreading the floor that way. It just means that helps, don't get me wrong, but it just means, how do we get him back to seeing and feeling comfortable with the basketball to where he's almost like a point forward, which is what they envisioned as him. And as somebody who's 7 foot tall, that would be invaluable. So, I think that's a big part of what they want to do. And they do believe that Allen and Mobley can work. And here's the one thing too, Dave, Jared Allen's a double-double machine and doesn't need the ball. He doesn't even care if he gets the ball. So I think that that's something that the Cavs keep in mind too, as a reason that can work offensively.
Yeah, the one thing I would say, they got to figure out, Evan Mobley needs a kind of a signature offensive part to his game. We don't know what that is yet. He's a guy that he can run a little bit, he can shoot a little. Find something that he does that the defense can't stop, and then let him go to it. And there has to be several things in his game.
Yeah, I know the Cavs, and that's another thing with Kenny Atkinson, bringing in Kenny Atkinson, is you're hoping to see something like that, where it's, Evan Mobley has the spin move a la Hakeem Olajuwon with his back to the basket, where, they want him to have that signature move. Or maybe it's a 10 to 12 foot guaranteed jumper that if you don't go out on him, he's knocking it down every time. So there are various ways that they want to see him evolve his game. And that, again, was a big part of this interview process, where they're interviewing all these coaches after the season. One of the big questions is, what are you going to do to get Evan Mobley? All things, being the same as they are, the roster is same as it is. We're keeping the core four. What are you going to do? How are you going to get Evan Mobley to reach really his potential? Maybe not right away, but at least get a lot closer to that. And he's been inching toward that, Evan Mobley. What the Cavs want is for him to take that huge step within the next year or two.
All right, before I let you go, this is a three-team trade proposed by former NBA executive John Hollinger, now with The Athletic. He has the Cavaliers getting Brandon Ingram and Cole Anthony, the Magic getting Darius Garland, the Pelicans getting Wendell Carter Jr., Jet Howard, and Karis LeVert. So Cavs would get Brandon Ingram and Cole Anthony, give up Darius Garland and Karis LeVert. Of all the goofy trades that I've seen, this one, I could see each of these. You could convince me that each of these teams might make a trade like this.
Yeah, and we run a lot of those goofy trades on HoopsWire. Some of them I look at when we run them, and I'm just like, no way would anybody consider this. But this one is, like you said, I mean, I think that's a pretty nice deal all the way around. Now, with the Cavs, obviously, you'd have to say Cole Anthony is starter worthy next to Donovan Mitchell. Certainly, you would be getting Brandon Ingram in that deal, who, when he can stay healthy, is a borderline all-star. But, for me, it looks like Brandon Ingram, probably some contract issues there with the Pelicans, which is why they want to unload him. Pelicans don't want to give him a max deal. I don't know that the Cavaliers would either because of his injury issues. And he's a fine player when he can stay healthy, but is he an all-star worthy of a max contract? There's a lot of questions there. So, I think mostly, Dave, what the Cavs are looking at is we got a new coach. We're going to have a new system. Let's see how this goes. We got to figure out what's going on with Isaac Okoro. Maybe there's a move to be made there. But otherwise, let's see how this goes because, frankly, you have all the way until February to make a trade if you feel the need to do it. So let's see how this plays out the first couple months of the season and see where the chips fall after that in terms of the roster. But, I know the Cavs like the roster as it is. Just got to figure out, what are we going to do with Isaac Okoro? Is there an upgrade to be had there? They're not going to just move him to move him, but they're going to see if there's maybe an upgrade because now would be the time with Isaac Okoro to figure that out.
Sam Amico, hoopswire.com, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Sam.
All right. Thanks so much for having me. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. Make sure you check him out. Always really good Cavs coverage, as well as coverage of the entire NBA, hoopswire.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.